Hello and welcome to State of the Economy. Today we have with us Mr. R Gopalan, Secretary Economic Affairs, who will help us decode the budget in greater detail. Welcome to our show, Mr. Gopalan.
Thanks, Mr. Venu.
We, to begin with, could you tell us how some of the numbers that you have arrived at in the budget, let's say the GDP number, inflation, how do they, how have you arrived at these numbers?
Well, the way we look at, we had the benefit of the last quarter numbers and the advanced estimates which came about of what the likely GDP growth this year is likely to be. On top of it, we look into various indicators which are reckoned for the purpose of looking at how the future trends are likely to be. We also factor in the inflation numbers, and based on our own assessment and analysis, we work out what that number is likely to be.
What is the inflation number that you assume for
we have
next
assumed
year?
We have assumed 6.4% as 6.5% as the inflation number.
And the GDP number?
GDP number 7.6 is what we have taken, and this is based on the fact that this year we also look at the historical numbers and the base at which we had this year. Agriculture is at about 3%, no 2.5% this year agriculture, coming on a base of 7% of the last year. Industry is likely to grow about 3.9 to 4% this year, and services at 9.4. That makes up about 6.9. We expect, based on the fact that low base level, agriculture will certainly grow, and industry will certainly grow because of number of factors which we are putting in, which are already in the pipeline. And services, if they hold at about 9.4, 9.5, then it's possible to get a 7.6.
There is a view, Mr. Gopalan, that the inflation number could go a little out of whack simply because you have also committed, implicitly committed to correcting oil prices going forward. And that is inherent in your assumption that you will bring down the overall subsidies to less than 2% of GDP, 2% for the during the coming fiscal. And there's an understanding that oil price will be corrected. And if you take all that into account, are you certain that you will be able to keep inflation down at 6.5?
Let's look at the, as far as inflation is concerned, possible corrections that might take place. These are all one of the, there's a first round and second round effect, and it settles at a level. So an inflation is question of levels, you know that very well. Not doing it and keeping in fisc has a much more definitive danger of persistence in the economy of pressures, and that in some sense would translate into inflation for a longer period of time.
Longer period, yeah.
It is better to take it, and it's always better that because people also by these price rise would also understand that consumption levels have to be curtailed.
So you're saying that increase in oil prices could lead to some demand moderation?
No, I am looking at the thing that not passing it through the prices is not good.
Because it stays in the system.
It stays in the system. It also gives a negative incentive of more consumption because of lower prices. So these behaviors will have to be corrected.
So you're saying that diesel prices would be corrected going forward?
As we go along, the point which we need to note is that the policy is already in place. It's a question of timing.
It's a question of timing, yeah. When to implement it.
Now, that is a call which the political executive will take.
Yeah, that is the impression we have from both Prime Minister and Finance Minister.
So, I would say that since both the Prime Minister and Finance Minister are extremely conscious of the ill effects of not doing that on the economy. I think that has sent out a message.
Yeah. They've used the term biting the bullet, both of them actually. Yeah. So Mr. Gopalan, this oil subsidy is really the elephant in the room. Everybody, every analyst, whether from industry or otherwise, is talking about the massive oil subsidy is how will the government manage oil subsidies if oil prices are at assuming at $115 average in the coming fiscal. Now, this year itself, the under recoveries are of the order of, I am told, about $30 billion or 1,46,000 crore. Now, it is being shared in various by a formula where the oil companies take part of the hit, the government provides some subsidy. Now, obviously, this cannot go on. Now, when you correct oil prices, how will you, what sort of formula do you think 2012-13 will see in terms of sharing of the subsidy burden?
There is a past precedence of how this is being shared, and that will give certainly a much more decisive weightage in calculating as to how the sharing formula will work. Maybe a slight change here and there could be there, but it is a well set kind of a principle which we have been following. So, there are no surprises about it. But
there will be a change. This budget promises a change. It says much more price correction will happen. Consumer pass through to the consumer will be much more than this year. Isn't that the impression that this budget gives?
The budget says that our subsidies will be capped at 2%.
Yeah. So, that implicitly means there is a very pass.
It also says that on food issue, which is basic cause for malnutrition, along with other factors like sanitation and those kind of issues, that is an area where we need to attack. And political executive is firmly committed that that is something which cannot go on.
Yeah.
And with the 2% cap on subsidy, and with this imperative which is there, somewhere we have to make a change.
Yeah.
And that change will have to come from other areas where subsidy is there. So, I am only trying to lead you to the point that the political executive has taken a very strong decisive commitment of not more than 2% of subsidy this year, and progressively going down over the next few years. And there is an imperative on the malnutrition and food subsidies. It is very well understood.
In fact, what you are
appreciated.
What you are saying, that subsidy will be withdrawn from the non-merit subsidies will be withdrawn and it will be directed towards food security.
No, I won't put it that way. There are still, despite the fact that there are poor people in the country. For them, kerosene, LPG, those kind of fertilizers are very, very important.
No, the middle class.
Now, we need to see that the subsidy goes to really the poor people.
We will take a small break here. Don't go away. Keep watching Rajya Sabha TV. Welcome back to State of the Economy. We are having a conversation with Mr. R Gopalan, Secretary Economic Affairs. Mr. Gopalan, we were on the subject of subsidies and how you very clearly mentioned that the subsidies will be capped at 2%, and within that 2%, you are suggesting that the political executive will try to redistribute or restructure the subsidy to direct it towards the more needy. Am I right in understanding that?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, and you are saying that the Aadhaar platform, UID project will help in delivering subsidies to the more needy and avoid leakages. The finance minister has been saying in recent weeks that he is having sleepless nights over leakages in subsidy. Now, can you give us a roadmap as to how and when the Aadhaar system will start attacking these leakages?
The other work is going on, has gathered a lot of pace now. 20 crore people have been enrolled, and 14 crore people have been given the numbers. Pilots have been going on for how to get the system work in Mysore on LPG, in Alwar on the kerosene, and in Jharkhand on the PDS system. My information is that those pilots have been very successful. Now, based on this, the commitment that has been made is about introducing this in 50 districts in this year. That is, 50 districts is perhaps the minimum. Now, if the pilot, if we are able to, find successful implementation, with certain glitches are likely to be there, but those glitches will be overcome in the implementation phase. Once that is done, we would certainly look at beyond 50 districts this year itself.
Okay, this year itself.
We will look at beyond 50 districts this year itself.
So that the universalization will start?
We'll have to start, and once that starts, the kind of subsidy which is going into, just I want to share an information with you. When we did some work on Jharkhand on the PDS system, we found we were able to locate a sizable percentage of cards which should not be with people,
the non-deserving.
So these kind of exercises are bound to really cut down the amount, the subsidy going into the wrong people, and that's the best way to curb the subsidy payment to non-deserving people.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Mr. Gopalan, now coming to some of the other issues, the one positive aspect of this budget, which the market has also has liked, is the realism in setting the fiscal deficit target. Now, 5.9% of GDP is the fiscal deficit for 2011-12, and you are budgeting to bring it down to 5.1%. This is a 0.8% decline in fiscal deficit. Now, this target is partly being achieved by raising revenues and partly from really non-tax revenues, which are a big chunk actually. If you look at what you budgeted for receipts from spectrum and from disinvestment, 40,000 crore and 30,000, 80, that's a big chunk. Now, this is a one-time receipt, right? So, do you think in the subsequent year, how will you sustain a lower fiscal deficit?
We have, as part of FRBM exercise, we have brought out the medium-term fiscal statement, fiscal policy statement, which for next 3 years, that is 12, 13, 13, 14, 14, 15, takes into account the increases, the various scenarios on revenues, expenditure, deficit, revenue deficit, effective revenue deficit. Those numbers have been computed. It is all available in the public domain. Once you look at it, you will find that the efforts at increasing tax collection and with the growth in economy and the buoyancy in revenues, with better tax management systems and simplification, which has been attempted in a very meaningful way, our belief is that the tax-GDP ratio can go up.
Will go up. Then you don't have to depend on these one-time receipts.
So, if you look at that statement, you will find in some years we have not taken into account this one-time revenues coming in.
Okay.
So, you study that document, you will get to know how we are planning to go forward. And this one time is one time, maybe next year, may not be next year in certain cases. So, that shows very clearly the emphasis is more on ensuring that we are able to get the tax-GDP ratio higher, and also ensure that expenditure is in line with what is the growth in expenditure will be in line with what is the kind of growth we plan to achieve for the economy. So, in that sense, there will not be stress on the economy as far as expenditure is concerned.
Okay. You know, there is one criticism, Mr. Gopalan, is that you accepted some of the DTC proposals, but you didn't go the whole hog. Like you could have made tax exempt for incomes up to 3 lakhs, which the DTC standing committee has also recommended. So you went, you liberalized the exemption from 1,80,000 to 2 lakh. So do you think you could have done a big bang and gone to 3 lakhs and then up to then 10 lakhs, 10%?
DTC is attempting to clean up a number of things. It also, DTC also has a particular growth rate of economy factored in. All these conditions have to fall in place. The absence of regulations which would govern that, there is a great risk in going into the rates without really fulfilling all the conditions which are part of the DTC. And not especially this year, when we need to raise more revenues for the purpose of the fiscal deficit containment. So it's a balance. It's an issue which was debated. My revenue secretary has been on the job, and it was a carefully chosen and carefully considered decision. And whatever elements of the DTC which have been put in there have been chosen after deliberate discussion.
We will take a small break here. Don't go away. Keep watching Rajya Sabha Television. Welcome back to State of the Economy. We are having a conversation with Mr. R Gopalan, Secretary Economic Affairs. So we were on the subject of the Vodafone decision in the budget. Now you're suggesting that there is no change in the tax law. It's a mere reiteration of the government's position as it existed in the
intention as it existed in the tax law.
In the tax law. Now, going forward, after this, what happens? Now, I am told that the case will again go to the Supreme Court. Obviously, Vodafone will have to go back to the Supreme Court. The government is also there in a review. So, will this again be contested in the Supreme Court?
No, government's review is already in the Supreme Court. What action Vodafone will take now, it's for them to decide. Government has merely reiterated its intention as it appeared in the legislature. So, I think we'll have to, as we go along, we'll have to see how the situation unfolds.
In the Supreme Court?
I'm saying that, I'm not saying only with reference to Supreme Court. We need to see what is the course of action Vodafone would kind of take. As far as we are concerned, we have done the,
Vodafone is.
As far as we are concerned, let me complete. Our review petition is before the Supreme Court. We have reiterated the intention which we have on this. Our intention, legislature's intention on this, it has been reiterated or clarified. True, yeah. I think our job is done.
Your job is done. Yeah. What I am suggesting was that Vodafone is saying that it will have no option but to again go to the court and seek redressal. So, in that sense, it's back in the Supreme Court. That's what I was suggesting. Yeah.
Until they take the action, I'm not willing to make a comment on that.
Now, coming back to another aspect of the budget, the budget, obviously the economy is in a sharp deceleration and the budget is trying to do a lot of things to lift the economy and get back to the 7.6% growth rate that you have assumed in the budget. Now, there are many sectors which are in distress, and I have noticed that in the budget you've done a little bit for each sector which is in distress, like supplying foreign debt, liquidity, making easier access to foreign borrowings by the civil aviation sector, which is in deep distress, and many civil aviation airlines companies are in the red. Similarly, you have tried to give the power sector, which is also in need of liquidity, because they have heavy debt in their books, and they are also trying to expand. Power generation needs to be expanded. Now, how will this policy be put in place? You have announced certain things. Now, how will it pan out?
Well, we have looked at growth. There are some stress sectors, but that is not the only area. We had looked at the overall growth as to what is to be done. So, we have done a lot of work on the capital market side. We have done work on MSME side. We have done a lot of work on that. Tax-free bonds, then ECB, external commercial borrowings, definition of infrastructure, which is a very big one, which has just gone unnoticed, because this standardization of sectors which will come under all the financial regulators.
You have given gas infrastructure status or something, right?
No, we had given certain, I mean, it's all out in the public domain. Now, what we have does 29 sectors, now all the financial regulators will take them as infrastructure. So, it is not that one regulated accepting one as infrastructure, another not, which gives a lot of, I mean, problems for the investors in these bonds.
You have tried to standardize the definition.
Definitions we have standardized. So, that is something which is a big help. Now, what is the advantage it gives? For the banks, there is some exposure norms, there is a change, they are able to, because of infrastructure, they can have a slightly more relaxed kind of, I mean, norms. We are able to get the infrastructure debt fund, we are able to get the FII bonds in infrastructure that can come into these sectors. You have got ECBs, you have got a tax treatment ATIA, right? A number of facilities which are available to infrastructure sectors will be available to these 29 sectors at this point. So, that is a big improvement, a certainty or standardization of these 29 sectors getting all the benefits under infrastructure, and which is a very big step, and unfortunately it has gone unnoticed in the cacophony of a number of other issues. Then we have we increase the number of sectors which is available for viability gap funding, withholding tax, a number of areas where we have, I mean, taken steps on.
Withholding tax is a positive measure which the industry has appreciated.
Then venture capital fund, the tax treatment to venture capital fund, that has also been significantly, I mean, expanded. Then investment linked deductions has been, I mean, given to you, and we have put in place the takeout financing and the, I mean, credit enhancement mechanisms which are there. So, we have done quite a good amount of things on the, and look at the, there are also issues which have decisions which have been taken which are outside the budget, company law, mines bill, and the competition policy which is going to come, then manufacturing policy which has been cleared. So, these are the things which have already.
So, there is a lot of detailed work which has happened.
A lot of detailed work have happened, both before the budget as well as in the budget.
I want to come to another very important aspect.
On the, as far as these sectors where you said there are benefits which have been given, let me come to power. You have got the ECBs to power sectors has been given, withholding tax reduction has been given, recognition as infrastructure sector has come about, accelerated depreciation provided for, duty reliefs to raw materials like
this is for power.
For power, duty relief to raw materials like coal, LNG, which are the feedstocks for this thing.
How would infrastructure status help?
And tax-free bonds. No, as an infrastructure status, it helps, as I mentioned to you.
It already had infrastructure status, no?
It had, but then the question is that we now very clearly state it is power generation, power transmission, and power distribution.
Okay.
Now, all the sectors now in some sense, they are able to get. So, this is the kind of steps we have taken for the stressed sectors. In addition, for the economy, what have been done before the budget and what has been done in the budget in a massive way also enables growth to go forward. Now, the most important thing now, what is important is to get them implemented.
Yeah, implementation is a big issue, because how do you ease procedure to get coal mining going, to get more areas brought under coal mining, because supply of coal is critical to the running of the economy, because it's critical to power. So, these are procedural issues. These are not issues which necessarily be taken up in the budget. How do you, going forward, how do you think you will ease procedures?
Now, since this is not a budget related item, it's implementation issues. A lot of work is going on. In the Prime Minister's office, a number of steps have been taken to ensure that FSA is signed for a number of projects by the coal ministry, that is the Coal India Limited. Now, in the manufacturing side, they will be putting in place a number of systems by which projects will be monitored, and those monitoring will include stepping in wherever they have difficulties in resolving those difficulties. So, on the implementation side, these are the kind of things which is and implementing projects like DMIC, Delhi Mumbai Industrial Corridor, spinning off. But these kind of projects, when they are big projects, when they get implemented very fast, it has a great spin-off effect on other, manufacturing and those. Skill development, the kind of steps we have taken on skill development is huge. And it is ramping up. It is ramping up at an exponential way, rather than average.
So can we hope that, say, in months to come, this general impression of procedural inaction, or what is described as policy paralysis, will will be removed?
We thought, FMS, Finance Minister also mentioned that there is nothing called policy paralysis. Now, procedural implementations, certainty in procedures, the approvals which are being given, those are all always in a transforming, in a changing milieu, always has some problems every time. But that is a way they have got to be resolved. And if we want to get the implementation right, obviously there will be tremendous amount of focus in these areas. And unless this is done, we can't say that implementation has happened. And implementation has not happened, we cannot take for granted that growth is going to be there. So, from that macroeconomic viewpoint, we need to get into these sectors, these areas, and then focus our attention on these issues.
Thank you, Mr. Gopalan, for being with us. That is all we have in this edition of State of the Economy. We'll be back soon with another episode. Thank you. Goodbye.